welcome everybody to EggHeads Review. And this is the second show, and with me, your host, Pamela Roth. And today I have with us Trey, who is the producer and my co-host.
Good evening, good
Trey
morning,
is somewhere
good
around here.
afternoon.
Hi, Trey.
They let me in the building. I snuck in through the back.
Hey, Trey.
And I have with me today my guest, which I'm very happy about, is Ian Dorian. Hello, Ian.
Hello. Hi, Pam. How are you?
Fine, thank you. I'm so glad you finally came.
I'm glad to be here. This is a really wonderful opportunity. And I'm a big fan of the show, and I'm also a big fan of all these stories and characters. So this is like a holiday for me.
It's fun for me because I grew up with a lot of these characters, growing up between comic books and then, the TV shows and the movies and all the little Funko little figures and costumes. And now I'm actually part of this whole family. I'm excited about it.
I'm just glad you guys let me in. I gave the guy $5 downstairs. And said, can I get up in that show? I heard they're taping. I would like to get upstairs in that show.
So, Ian, tell me about yourself. When I met you at New York Comic Con, it was over your graphic novels.
Oh, yeah. I've been working in graphic novels for several years, but I started off many years ago as an assistant and ghost artist. And I got a chance to learn from some of the very best people that have ever been in the industry. And, even when I was working as a professor, I always tried to be an assistant to other people and professionals because I can always learn something from someone else.
Now, you said you're a professor, so currently you're a professor besides being a graphic novelist?
Yeah, actually, I've been a professor for 18 years, and I teach intro to art, painting, drawing, sculpture. I've had wonderful opportunities to be at some really great schools. I taught at the Maryland Institute College of Art. I taught at the University of the Arts in Philadelphia, and I taught at the Joe Kubert School, and which is a school for comic book artists.
Wow.
Believe it's
He taught at Joe Kubert. That's
Mike Chen hired me,
home
and I had been given a scholarship many years earlier, which I did not take for other reasons. But I met Joe Kubert during a snowstorm, and I lived about an hour and 10 minutes away. But I had canceled on him once before. And Joe Kubert, for anyone who doesn't know, is certainly one of the most famous comic book artists that ever lived. He spent, I would say at least 75 years as an illustrator right up until he left this little rock.
His iconic Tarzan is in the Smithsonian.
Tarzan, Sergeant Rock, Hawkman.
Is Stan Lee also?
Stan Lee is a writer and creator, and Stan Lee is the face of Marvel. Make mine Marvel, I believe, was his initial phrase, and certainly
Enough said
and Excelsior.
God.
He's a really nice guy. I had a chance to spend about a half an hour, 40 minutes with him and my twin brother, my identical twin brother, actually, Guy Dorian Sr. And he added those magnificent words to the pictures that Jack Kirby drew. And Jack Kirby, in case anyone doesn't know, Jacob Kurtzberg, Jack Kirby is the creator of pretty much everything you're seeing right now on Avengers and X-Men, and certainly co-creator. And
well, he's alive, and so Stan Lee is still alive.
Well, Jack is gone. Jack
gone.
died when I was around 19 or 20, and I met Stan about 3 years ago. He's still working. Stan's going to work. That's how he lives. He lives to work and he works to live because he loves it. And Stan changed the playing field. He didn't just write or co-create, but he had a lot to do with the marketing and distribution and so forth of comic books in a more modern way. And he had one other aspect. All the characters, iconic characters before, he was in the position he was in to do what he did, the characters were like gods, more like the DC characters, a Wonder Woman, a goddess, and Superman like a god. And he wanted the characters to live in a world that we all lived in. And so the characters were like family, or some of them were family, like the Fantastic Four. And they would get into arguments with each other. They'd have a hard time communicating.
Right, so like family members, like
Yeah, that's what he
siblings
wanted.
and parents.
He wanted to bring it down to earth in a literal and metaphoric sense.
Right.
But at the same time, a lot was going on in the 60s and 70s, and he really was on the pulse of that. As a matter of fact, one of the most important stories for me as a young boy was The Silver Surfer, written by Stan and drawn by a guy named John Buscema. And to this day, it's still one of my favorite
John
books.
Buscema, classic Conan.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, John Buscema, classic everything.
Avengers,
I
Captain
mean,
America.
the man could draw an entire
Yes.
figure with
Yes.
one line. I'm not joking. I'm not exaggerating. And one of the greatest talents to hit the industry ever.
Well, I know, just to interject for a moment, I know right now that there's a project that you're working on that you were commissioned for, that you were influenced by the Silver Surfer, because isn't that one of the projects you're working on?
one of the projects I worked on recently was for Capital One, and
Capital One Bank.
Capital One, yeah, they're doing Capital One cafes, and I worked with Mark Holmes. He spent a lot of years over at Pixar, and then he was working for another company called Wamix. And I got to know the people over at Wamix and some people at Capital One. And Mark and I knew each other. And, we had talked just as friends. And he knew I was involved in the comic book industry. And, it's a little different the way we visualize and tell stories. So, they brought me on to work on this project. And they really wanted a Jack Kirby or retro 60s inspired look to the posters. It's so I having worked in consumer products on Avengers Assemble,
Right.
Consumer products for Family Guy, and other projects, they knew I could flex my skill set to match a stylistic approach. So
Yeah, I looked at, I studied your art already, and you're not retro. You are basically modern, cutting edge.
Thank
And
you.
That's no compliment because you're on the show. I'm just telling you. That's no
Thank you,
compliment.
thank you. But, when working in consumer products, we have a very specific look. It has to match the animation style, or it has to match the house style. So it's imperative that people like myself be open-minded to giving the client what they need. And I believe it's been quite successful and will be a very upcoming and big campaign soon.
Because you mentioned that it's going to go nationwide with these cafes.
Well, we'll let Capital One decide all
Okay.
that, but we shall see what we shall see, but I'm pretty sure. And I have to tell you, this was one of the best projects I ever worked on. Wamix and Mark Holmes for certain, and Capital One, they were very accommodating, very supportive, and I can't say more good things about working with them. It was really wonderful. But outside of that, that was a project I was called to do, and I had to kind of, just for a short period of time, put the main project that I worked on, which was Law of Resistance for PKMM Entertainment. And that's sort of my baby, because I'm a co-creator on the project with Matthew Pilata, who is the CEO,
Right.
and with Jim Kruger. Jim Kruger, most fans, if you're a fan of comics, would know Jim Kruger's work. Several projects like Justice for DC Comics, where he got the Eisner Award, along with Alex Ross.
An Eisner Award, that's like a type of award, like the Academy
That
Awards,
is
but
like
for
a
comics.
Grammy. That is like a Hall of Fame. That's like, that's it.
Oh yeah. I'm a big fan of Jim's work, and I called Jim and I said, "Hey Jim, we have a story."
Like
and
an
I got-
Oscar.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, exactly.
Oscar.
And I said, "Hey Jim, can you? I have a story, and here's some work, and I'd really love for you to come on and develop this further and write the story for us." And he said, "Ian, with you, absolutely." And I mean, I was deeply appreciative. I met him at a party for a gentleman named Bob Schreck, who was a senior editor over at DC back in the day, and always a big fan. And one of the things I have to say about working on these projects is I get to work with people I admire. And
But these are also people that you grew up reading all of their work.
oh, sure. I mean, on our books, there's some really great, wonderful names and talents. Some of the people on my book directly, Bill Sienkiewicz.
Bill's excellent.
Bill is, in my opinion, one of the most talented artists, illustrators that has ever touched a comic.
I would have loved, when he was doing New Mutants, and this is the 80s, if he would have did an adaptation of Lord of the Rings. That would have been
Well,
incredible.
you know,
His
he did.
paintings are crazy.
He did Dune, and actually, speaking of New Mutants, basically the New Mutants movie that's coming out is based off of and inspired by his work with Chris Claremont. So
That run was incredible. You know, Pamsy, if you never read any books, there's just a certain series of books you should read. His New Mutants with Moonstar. I guess she was the first, honestly, and I don't know, you may agree, she was the first Native American that was introduced into the mainstream comic continuum, and everybody loved her. How could you have not loved Moonstar?
there are a few other characters, but outside of probably the main character was one of the characters from when X-Men was revamped,
Right.
along with
right.
Nightcrawler, Wolverine, Colossus.
Warpath?
No,
Yeah.
I'm saying I know Wolverine, I know, the X-Men and that series, but the other one that you just mentioned, I'm going to have to catch up on that.
No, that's fine. That was New Mutants, and not for nothing, Ian, you agree? That book, and that's how a lot of guys start off, that book wasn't A. It wasn't B. It was between B and C, but the way Bill did it, the
Well,
pain.
Bill and Chris
Oh,
Claremont
yeah,
has
Chris,
brought
it was an A book.
triple A.
Yeah,
I would
it was
say.
just an A book. You just had to get it.
Oh, absolutely, and it, I have to say it's a real pleasure. A lot of the people on the books with me, Mark Texiera, I was his assistant on some of the titles for Marvel.
1990s Ghost Rider,
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Eisner, excellence.
Excellent. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And he's a good friend of mine, and he came on to work on this book with me. Actually, he co-illustrated issues 4 and 5. And Joe Weems came on. He's a tremendous inker. And inker is, just so you know, even though we have titles, it's really just so we know who's doing what on the books, but they're all creators
Right. And you,
in
what do you,
one way or another.
so you all work together.
Yeah, and they're all artists. So Dean White and Paul Mounts are coloring the series with us.
Know Paul very well.
Paul Mounts,
very
what
well.
a sweet
Know
guy
knows
and
her
a
very,
tremendous
very
talent.
well.
And Dean White, that guy, I love that guy. We're great buddies, and he is a super talented colorist. I know he's working over with John Romita Jr. He colored Kick-Ass, Hit Girl.
Kick-Ass.
Yo, yeah, he
That was
colored
good.
Kick-Ass, Hit
Miller.
Girl. He colored with Rick Remender and John Romita Jr. He colored Captain America. He went on to Avengers with
Rick is a beast.
Jerome Pena. Oh, sure.
Rick is a beast. Forget
Oh
it.
yeah, yeah. I'd love
is
to
a
work
beast.
with him one day. I
Oh,
would really
what?
I love
Please.
his stories.
Can I sit in the room?
I love his stories.
But when they do this, is this being done in New York or in LA or someplace else?
Well, we all work remotely.
Oh.
So it's like you're working as a team, but you're working alone. It's a very interesting kind of situation, but not uncommon these days. But I can tell you that everyone brings something to the table, and bringing together the teams, that was part of my job, to reach out to people and to look for the talent. what talent would.
Enhance and bring everything out.
Yeah,
in the
we
book.
use the word plus. So who can plus you? And so, I feel honored to have worked with some of the people that I worked with on this book because while I'm fans of theirs, maybe in some way they're showing their fan or friend support for me.
But that's what I'm doing now.
I'm
doing that right now.
Yeah. Oh, and I called up Bill, and when I called up Bill and I asked him, I was actually calling Bill to find an anchor, and Bill Sienkiewicz, and he said, "Hey, Ian, I can come on and do some of the work on there." And
Wow.
I covered the phone, and I looked over my shoulder, and I said, "Well, I'll have to get back to you on that." Well, no, really, I was floored.
Pam, it's like playing with the Beatles right now, right? And then he calls one of the other guys from the Eagles, and he says he can't make it, so he calls somebody from Steely Dan. I mean, this is crazy.
Yeah. It's
Top
really
notch.
quite amazing, and
This is crazy. I need. Can you come? Nah, we'll do somebody from the Steve Winwood band. He comes over. Okay.
exactly. I was truly gifted, and I have to say, creating the story was very important to me because one of the biggest dreams that we all have, even people that have lifetime professionals in the field, whether they're editors, writers, artists, illustrators, we all want to be creators. And the truth is we all are.
Let me tell you something. I'm gonna tell everybody that's watching our show, you are getting A-grade homework, legendary history right here. EggHeads Entertainment.
That's right. And I'm really glad to do it here on Eggheads Entertainment.
And we appreciate it. Thank
Yeah,
you.
me too. And we're all creators. The thing is, there's a lot to it. There's a lot to creating things, and you have to imagine. When you create an idea is just a spark. But an idea could be someone can walk in the room and say, "Hairy dog," and then I would say, "Bucket of water." Someone could say,
Red high heels.
"Red high heels," and then I would say, "Banana peel." So the idea.
And then I say lawsuit.
And then I say law of
Oh my God.
resistance.
Oh my God.
And see, that's the point. Is it starts with an idea. It doesn't have to be a character or it could be anything. But an idea is a spark. But you have to keep that spark and you have to fan the flame to make a pyre. And you can't do that without skill, technique, hard work. You have to fail early and fail often.
You know what, Pam? For this episode, Egghead Review, we're going to charge tuition. Because this is school right here. These kids don't even understand.
Everyone's being schooled right now.
Well, the key thing to being successful is not about being, excuse the expression, the man, because you could be the woman too.
No, of course.
You got to be the person that's willing to fail a lot in order to succeed. And if you're not willing to fail a lot, if you're not willing to lose a lot, as a matter of fact, the more you're willing to lose, I promise you, the more you're going to gain. The only thing I would say is stay in the game. If you stay in the game long enough and you're terrible when you
Completely
start,
agree.
if you have bad ideas and you're terrible when you start, eventually you'll have great ideas and you'll be the person people are asking advice from.
Pam, it's just like passing the ball. You guys
Exactly.
get knocked down, get right back up, knocked down, get right back up.
It's like anything.
Sell your house.
And it's not
Get back up.
it's not all about, there's many different skills necessary to telling good stories. And it's not just all about drawing the best or,
Right, it's
or even writing the best, as much as that is very important. The writing is where it all begins.
But you also have to have the passion too.
Let me tell you what.
Absolutely correct.
You
I
have
don't
to-
care how many times people tell
Passion-
me to take this show off the air. I don't care. I'm doing it.
No,
Look,
you have to have. First of all, you have to believe in yourself. You have this idea, and like you said, there's going to be times that you fail, and you keep starting again, and you fail, and each time you're going to get better and better. But you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe in your idea and know that something. At some point, I'm going to win. I'm going to succeed. And
Funko Pops follows Eggheads. I just want that out there.
I can tell you, I worked for nothing. I worked for little. It's not about I don't do windows. As a matter of fact, when you're
I haven't heard that one.
when you're a comic
I
book
don't do
creator
windows.
or a story creator, or
I don't work weekends.
I can tell you, I work every day. You will work longer hours. But when you're a creator, if you're not committed to the project, the people you bring on, the people that when you're leading a project, you're not the boss per se. It's the wrong attitude. When you're leading a project, your job is to help the people you brought on succeed.
Correct.
Because their job is to focus on the success of your product or your character or your story.
Right.
Absolutely correct.
Yes, you can be inspired and motivated for yourself, but it's no longer about you. It's about the story. It's about the characters, and it's about the product.
Right, and it's also about the team because you have to keep them inspired so this way you're all working together.
Yeah, and it's not easy. We're trying to meet deadlines, and we're trying to bring out products that are new, and we're trying to bring new things to an audience that's inundated with images and pictures of things they're familiar with. And just think about when you're away from home and you need toothpaste or something.
Right.
You go look on the shelf. The name that's familiar is the one you're going to pick up because there's 100 on the shelf. Same with a comic book. Same with a graphic novel. So you have to give them something different. You have to give them something that...
Cachet. You must have a cachet.
Yeah, but you have to be authentic. I would say
Correct.
more than anything, the late Dennis Farber, who was my director over at the Maryland Institute College of Art when I did my master's degree there, he said to me, Ian, it doesn't matter what you do, but it matters that you're authentic.
Well, can I ask you a question? How would you, right now, there's so many comic books out there, so many characters over the years, and plus new ones that have been developed. How do you compete in an oversaturated market?
Well, the truth is, people can never get enough. So look at Netflix.
Okay.
People aren't looking, they're always looking for content, but the truth is they're looking for content they can connect to. So you could make many, many books and many, many stories, but if you're not connecting with the audience will go somewhere else. And they'll go, if there's 10 books to choose from, they'll go to the other 9. If there's 10,000 books to choose from, they'll go to the others. It really doesn't matter. The truth is, you give A quality work, AAA quality talent, AAA quality effort, and commitment to the craft of what you're doing. When I say craft, I don't just mean how well you draw something or even how well you write something, but I mean the construction of it, how you put it together. And that includes all the behind-the-scenes stuff, like budgeting.
So you talk about now the business end behind
Business
it all.
aspects. People say, I have a great idea. This is going to be wonderful. Ideas, again, I showed you. You said red
Shoes.
shoe or heel, and I said banana peel. Why did I say banana peel? Because irony is funny. And with the most elegant shoe, nothing's funnier than a banana peel,
True.
right? Because
It's like the old slapstick. And then from the banana peel, people fall. It's funny. It's all slapstick.
so you create a story from
Right.
that. The truth is, you can create a story from anything. So a great idea is only a great idea if you have the knowledge and the commitment to and the craft to bring it to life, and that usually takes a team. It can be done with an individual who's familiar with doing this kind of work.
Right.
And sometimes, even when great writers or popular writers like Stephen King may not then bring that into a new medium like, say, film, right? It can go to someone completely different to either do the screenplay version or just as the director or something like that. And this is true for everyone. The people over at Disney, Pixar, DreamWorks, I work with animators too, so it's what a gift it is. These are the top of the talents. Certainly the guys over at Pixar and Story First. I can't tell you how many vodcasts or podcasts or YouTube videos or just chances I've had to sit down and talk with these people or sit and listen to them talk. I can't tell you how much I learned just from listening to them. And it doesn't matter who they are, their gender, their melanin. None of that matters when you're a creator. You're about story.
And you are just speaking the truth. And, one of the guys just called in, and he asked me to really just ask you deep questions about how you feel about the comic industry right now, the independence, working with people. You told pretty much everything, but what do you think about the industry right now on
the industry
and comics in general?
The industry couldn't be better, in my opinion. And, we could look at numbers of sales, but numbers how? Less published hard copies, but more web purchases for web comics. Maybe the properties move and they, all of us, the mature fans, the new fans to the comics industry and to entertainment industry, it's become a homogenization, a melding, an amalgamation of different media and so forth. And as a result, we say, well, comics are, not doing well today. I don't believe that at all. As a matter of fact,
I was going to ask you, are there more comics now than there were when we were growing up? Because it seems that way.
I would say that the amount of comics that are available today are tremendously different, many more, because people can create at home and they could post their comics online immediately. And we're getting some really great stories and different kinds of stories, what they used to call underground comics. Underground is just as, in many ways, mainstream as mainstream is. And
so have they become more sophisticated over the years with the content and the way they're developed?
I would say the sophistication is, in other words, like highbrow versus lowbrow. When comics were first created, they were a way to rebrand and resell and repackage comic strips. That's why they're called comics.
Right, because I remember one time we were talking about it. Comic strips that started out in the Sunday funnies. My parents would get the Sunday newspaper, and my brothers and I would always look to tussle over getting the Sunday funnies.
Sure.
And if we liked the little comic strips, we would cut them out, put them in our notebooks, or, do something with them just to keep them, preserve them.
Well, the thing is, the newsstands didn't have a lot of space. So when you don't have a lot of real estate, it's better and you want to resell something that you've already sold, you stack the panels, the stories on top of each other, you fold it, you saddle stitch it, and you put it on the shelf, and you can resell what's been sold but repackaged. Ultimately, they figured out they can make new stories with this comic book.
Gotcha.
And so comic books, but I have to say, when you talk about the sale of comic books, I happen to think they're quite good, even with the competition of video games, which I love, by the way, video games, movies, cell phones. It's just comics are doing well. You have to think back in the day when Superman came out, it was not hard to sell 1 million copies per month. Okay? But they weren't competing with television. They had radio.
Right.
So they weren't competing with color film, feature film. They
Right,
weren't
everything was, first of all, there was radio, then after that it was black and white television. But-
yeah. What kid, today a kid gets color entertainment in their pocket
Total
and in
new
their
world.
hand
We live in a
24/7.
totally
on
new
a cell
world.
phone.
Right.
But where else could you get it back then besides a comic book?